Hello, I'm Anand Padmanabhan. I'm a research associate professor in the Department of Geography and Geographic Information Science at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. The talk today focuses on CyberGIS-Compute and how it enables computationally intensive geospatial research and education on CyberGIS-Jupyter. So, first, some key terms. What is CyberGIS? CyberGIS can be thought of as geographic information science and systems that are enabled by advanced cyber infrastructure. So, combination of traditional geographic information system and cyber infrastructure. The other term we have is CyberGIS-Jupyter. You can think about it as a gateway or a Jupyter environment with all this CyberGIS and geospatial software packages which are pre-built and accessible to a large number of users. So it supports a large number of users at the same time, and it has all the geospatial packages pre-built for them. So if you want to use CyberGIS-Jupyter for your geospatial application, it's really designed to do that. It provides all the tools, as I said, and geospatial tools, and has rich content output. It provides an interactive environment of Jupyter, and it is designed for geospatial analysis. However, it's by design, the computational power within each of the notebook is limited. So you cannot run a huge computationally or memory intensive task within a notebook. And that's by design because we want to support a large number of users. Of course, you could go directly to a high performance computing environment to run geospatial applications. However, such environments, even though they are powerful and providing all these computational resources and can run large tasks, most of them are lacking geospatial tools. So the users have to build their own. They also don't have an interactive visualization environment, so you have to do your computation, bring back the results somewhere, open it in a geospatial package and do your processing there. So kind of work with these two environments separately. And of course, last but not least is the learning curve. The learning curve of accessing HPC for geospatial research by geospatial scientists is extremely high. So that's a very high barrier of entry for geospatial scientists. So our research and our motivation to doing this talk was to thinking about how do we bridge between these two environments, the ease of use offered by CyberGIS-Jupyter as well as the power offered by the HPC environment. So that's kind of the motivation of the talk. So can we support this large computational environments within CyberGIS-Jupyter while taking into account and keeping the advantages of easy to use environment, an interactive environment that CyberGIS-Jupyter offers. So that's what CyberGIS-Compute is, bridging ease of use with powerful computing. In order to do that, we are coming up with this middleware. This middleware is basically provides kind of a scalable access to HPC to CyberGIS-Jupyter. Three main components are part of this middleware. You can think about the compute core, which basically is the service and the major thing that is part of this middleware. Of course, there is an SDK, which is kind of more client-facing, interactive client environment where they can put it in a Jupyter notebook and provides more or less a codeless access, as well as UI support for them to access the backend HPC infrastructure. And the third part is we don't say, hey, this is a system where you can use HPC resources through this simple using interface, but making the contribution is so difficult that nobody makes it. So we want to make the contribution also easy. So we have a third part which is focused on making the contribution easy and providing developer APIs and developer tools, so that the barrier for entry for developers is also quite low. So geospatial software writers and developers will be able to easily access HPC through CyberGIS-Compute. So little bit more details about the middleware core. It basically manages all the high performance computing related tasks for a job, for a user kind of task, that involves like a submission of the jobs to the HPC, writing kind of the scripts, and um, moving the data over, moving the results back. So all those kinds of step that goes into a backend when you try to run on HPC. So all those are kind of automated and hidden from the user's point of view. So it has three layers. You can think about it as having the API server layer, the middleware pool layer, and the connection layer. I'll talk about each of these in a minute. The API server essentially provides a RESTful web interface, user-facing API for authentication, so that like all the authentications, all the user um, requests are authenticated. And of course, you have once the user is authenticated, they submit a job, it puts it in the job queue, to a local job queue here. This job queue is essentially for communicating with something called the maintainer. The maintainer is kind of the internal workings, meaning it basically is contains a number of like this multi-threaded things which are there, multi-threaded workers, which basically what they do, it manages the logic of the submissions to HPC. So for example, stopping the or submitting the HPC task, stopping it, resuming it, ending the task on report HPC. So all those things which are part of the life cycle, as well as kind of initiating data transfers, like result download. So all those things are handled by the maintainer. Of course, the maintainer, each of the maintainer has to talk to HPC. And since this is providing access to hundreds of users potentially, so if you have hundreds of jobs that are being submitted, we don't want every maintainer to start going out to HPC, making SSH connections and trying to like submit jobs, query jobs. That would be really inefficient and not scalable. So what we have is we have a connector pool where basically we have a list of connections which are long living connections which are established between our compute core and HPC. And then whenever a maintainer needs to do a task on a particular HPC, it gets the appropriate connector and then it executes that task and releases it. We have implemented a mutex kind of a environment there in order to avoid race condition, so that when multiple, I guess, maintainers try to access one connector, they have to wait and it serializes it. So that's kind of the first part. The second part is the compute SDK. Of course, the compute SDK is designed for the user and it's installed within the CyberGIS-Jupyter environment. It basically integrates compute core functionality into CyberGIS-Jupyter. So it provides kind of a seamless access to HPC and in many ways almost an interactive UIs without having to write a code. So you have some demo notebooks where we provide you code. You just have to provide kind of use that same code, maybe select kind of the model that you are interested in, the parameters, and simple UI widgets are created for this, and the user can interact with it. And it also does some error checking in order to make sure that the user inputs are sane. Of course, the third thing which I talked about is contribution. We really want this system to get contribution from the community, and for that we have built a system where we can take like GitHub repositories, like code hosted in GitHub repository can be submitted. Hey, I have a model here which completely which runs some geospatial computing. I want to run it on XTP. What do I need to do? You need to provide some kind of configuration files. The system environment, for example, you can have a container or a Docker image that you provide. We have a standard Docker image which is provided by default, but a model developer can change it up if they want to. And they provide a manifest file of, hey, these are kind of the files to be run. This is kind of my setup kind of startup script, and then this is the main part of my code, and maybe this is kind of some cleanup which I have to do in the end. So that is specified by the model contributor or model developer in this case. And then once they have submitted it, it goes through a manual verification process to make sure that, hey, this code which contributed is reasonable and it does what it's supposed to, or what is advertised to. So we run some checking on the code before making it available. We also have tie the version to a GitHub commit. So essentially you cannot submit something for review and then like change it behind the scenes with a different code. So you will still be getting that committed version. So considering security into or taking security into consideration. So where can you see all these things? You can definitely have these links here in the GitHub. We have the project doc, and we have the SDK which is provided, and finally we also have a notebook which is provided, which basically goes through this process, taking some examples. I will advise you to go through them and to learn more about CyberGIS Compute. Again, if you have questions, you can also reach me. My email address is provided there. And of course, I need to acknowledge our NSF funding that made all this work possible. Thank you.